Welcome to episode 2 of Literally Speaking All Things AIS, the official podcast of Augusta Independent School District. I'm Assistant Superintendent Tim Litteral, and I'm excited you're joining us. This podcast is where we will share important district news, celebrate our students and staff, sit down with special guests, hear their stories and perspectives, highlight various programs and clubs, and lesser-known facts of our district before ending each episode with upcoming events. We will release 2 episodes monthly on the first and third Friday. Today, we'll start with a few quick updates and continue our conversation with Rob and Kelsch. We'll begin with AISD Headlines, a segment to share important district news and celebrate accomplishments. Let's get started. Augusta Independent has received a grant to establish a Little Free Library, or LFL, for the community, along with a generous donation of 200 children's books from Penguin Random House to help stock it from the beginning. This project will allow families, students, and residents of all ages to access free books, share stories, and build a stronger culture of reading in Augusta. The Little Free Library will be placed by the Blessing Box along 2nd Street. Neighbors are encouraged to visit anytime to take a book and share a book. Thanks to the initial donation of 200 books, the library will launch with a wide selection of children's titles, making it especially welcoming for young readers. As the library grows, our community members can contribute their own books for all ages to keep the collection fresh and diverse. If you are interested in donating books, please contact Megan Blackaby at Augusta Independent School at 606-756-2105. The volleyball team wrapped up their regular season earlier this week under new head coach Paige McCord. The team recorded more than 10 wins for the first time since 2014. They will open play in the 39th District Tournament next week as the 3 seed. They will play Mason County on October 21st at 6 o'clock at Bracken County High School. The team split with Mason County in the 2 matches this season. Sealed bids will be accepted by the Augusta Board of Education for the Multipurpose Educational Facility Edition until 2 o'clock on November 6th at the office of the Board of Education at 307 Bracken Street in Augusta. Bids will be opened and read aloud. More information can be found on the bidding process on our district website at www.augusta.kyschools.us. Today, we'll continue with part 2 of our interview with Principal Rob and Kelsch that we started on the first episode of Literally Speaking All Things AIS. We had so much to cover, we had to split our discussion into 2 segments. Going over a few of the new regulations, the average person may not know this, but every year there's a few new laws that come out. This year there was a very large number of new education-related laws that come out, and they all affect students, but some more directly than others. So I thought it'd be good maybe to go through a few of those that parents have maybe seen and heard about. And one of the first is Senate Bill 19, which required local boards to establish policies to include a moment of silence. The law basically states that you have to provide that for at least 1 minute, not to exceed 2. All students should remain silent and seated. During this time, students may be permitted to meditate, pray, or engage in any silent activity, and school personnel can't provide instruction regarding on how they use that moment of silence. How did Augusta School implement that new regulation?
First of all, Mr. Lowe, I want to thank you because, you were on top of, like you said, there's usually 3 or 4, but I think the document was 40, 50-some pages, and you narrowed it down to the 22 that we had to directly. So you were on top of that early, which made the planning at the building level go a lot smoother, so that's much appreciated. But as far as the moment of silence, so last year we were starting at 8:03. We backed up our start time to 8 o'clock, so now our morning looks like those students, the bell rings, they go to class. They're there from 8 to 8:01. We do that moment of silence. From 8:01 to 8:02, the Pledge of Allegiance, and then, we quickly take our attendance and then get right into class. I've heard a lot of schools talk about some of the issues they've had with that moment of silence. Once again, kudos to our faculty, our staff, and our kids. That has went very smooth. The kids, and like you said, we don't know what they're doing, and we're not allowed to ask. But they sit there, they're quietly, and it's went very well here. So very, very smooth transition, and that one's been one of the more easy ones to adopt.
Another part of Senate Bill 19 provides that a local board can or may provide opportunity for pupils to attend moral instruction for up to 1 hour a week. And again, I think going back to us being a small school, we've done this for years and worked with St. Augustine and allowed students to go over there weekly who want to.
Right. Even going back to when I was attending St. Augustine, St. Augustine was always a K-8 school. So as they went to high school, they lost a lot of that daily instruction. So they have, their classes, and I think they're CCD classes. So like you said, we've done that for years. Been working with Sister Nance and Father the last couple of years to provide that. So once again, that wasn't a big stretch for us, just to make sure the rules were followed, the paperwork was done. They had to request that, and not only them. St. Augustine's the one we're working with, but that's something once again, it's not limited to any certain. That's an hour of moral instruction dependent upon the students, families, and their beliefs and values. So yeah, we've worked with them, and those students, go over for their time of moral instruction, and then come back and like I said, that's we've worked very closely with St. Augustine, and that's kind of another one that's, like you said, us being small helped, but it's went very smooth, and that's continued and had no issues with that as well.
One of the ones that most people have probably heard about is Senate Bill 181, which requires local boards to designate a traceable communication system as the way that school district employees and volunteers communicate with students. Again, it has to be able to be traced, all communications to or by a student, and provide parents with the opportunity to access and review those communications. Teachers, coaches, staff members, volunteers can't text, can't send social media message. Everything has to be through this platform. Again, I think it's went pretty smoothly here. I think anytime you have a small district, things can be pushed out faster. I know there's a lot of opinions on the law. I think the law is very well intentioned. I think it's created a lot of unintended consequences when you have a small community like Augusta. You have people who work with these students in other jobs in the summer. Like I said, I think the benefit has been Parent Square. I think Parent Square is a good platform that's just allowed us to enhance our communication. I would expect to see maybe some changes to this law in the next legislative session. We'll see how they clarify that. But another law that was a pretty heavy lift required us to go out and purchase a platform and provide training, but I think overall it's went pretty smoothly.
Well, once again, kudos to you, Mr. Literal. I think we were on this very early, even before school last year, or we started, or maybe summer, meeting with communication platforms. Ultimately, like you mentioned, we ended up going with Parent Square. It's a lot like cameras in the school, in the classroom, Tim. People at first get a little worried, but those are there to protect everyone. And this has been very well. I think people were a little up in arms at first. I don't know if they thought it was saying accusing everybody of, doing things they shouldn't be doing. But I think we found you can do anything with Parent Square that you could have done with text messages, and now you're protected. And I do think it's went very smooth. And I do think there's even been some options, with forms online and permission slips online, and going back to that principal thing, as part of that, I'm a part of 60-some, 70-some groups, which is fine. I mean, that's notifications are set. But I think, like I said, I think people were kind of taken aback at first, thinking, we might have made a law for several, a small minority. But once again, anything we can do to protect kids, anything we can do to, as a school district, enhance communication. Listen, this has went well. I think it's probably went better than most people across the state thought it would. I do hate the fact that, as tends to be in education, they push something out, then us local districts are required to pay for it. It's not a lot, but a small district like ours, having to pay for something unexpectedly.
Everything adds up.
Yeah, coming from the man who controls the budget, that is a task to manipulate. But like I said, this has went well. I think people have found they can do it. It's like, some of the questions, well, what if I just had like a group text for my fundraisers, yeah, you can create that, and you've done a lot of that legwork, and I've not heard, early on there were some whispers because it was new, people didn't understand, but I mean, we're 5 or 6 weeks in and it doesn't even come up anymore. Right. So I think everybody that had a part in this, their intentions were good. As always, like all of us, to protect kids, to protect teachers, and the legwork up front that you did was instrumental in us rolling it out. I don't even think we had many, technology hiccups like sometimes you can have. So we're 5 or 6 weeks in, and it's just like it's been there forever. So it's went very well for us. And I think the communication we did with parents up front, this is what's coming, this is what we have to do, and how you use it.
Laid the groundwork.
And I think you had, 2 or 3 evening sessions if people were having trouble to come in. So we made that very easy. You made that very easy, and I'm sure Mr. Roof and some others. But no, I think once again, one thing about Augusta is we we truly are there for the kids, the parents, and we'll meet you. Basically, if you need something, let us know. Communicate with us, and we'll try to take care of it.
House Bill 208 required boards to adopt policies that, at a minimum, prohibit a student's use of a personal communication device, which modern examples were defined as cell phones, smartphones, tablets, and smartwatches. Going back to when I started here in 2008, we had a no cell phone policy. So I know we kind of tightened that up some, but a little stricter on things. But overall, it was something that we had already done and knew the importance long ago of restricting those devices.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I don't know what year we started that, but like you said, in 2008, we've been zero tolerance on cell phones for a long time. You know, it would amaze me the number of schools I would talk to over the past 10 or 15 years that would be like, man, we really wish we were on board. They're using them in the classroom, they're carrying them in the hallways, they're carrying them at lunch. And I know some of those aren't instructional time, but you know, my thought on the cell phones, Mr. Literal, all along was obviously you didn't want them distracted during class. You wanted your full attention. But, you know, just the capability of videotaping and, you know, putting people in bad situations. And if they can't have them out and they can't use them, then, you know, some of those things you can prevent. But, you know, the state got on board this year. It had kind of gotten a little harder to monitor the past couple of years because you know you got smartwatches, you've got things that it's hard enough for a teacher to teach a class 24, 25 kids, differentiate instruction, plan, carry out a lesson, monitor your normal class disruptions. But you know, over the last couple of years, your teachers are trying to watch for, are they texting on a device that's very small that they can say, well, I'm just checking my time. You know, all schools have seen an increase in vaping and e-cigarettes and different things, and companies have done us a great favor. They're making them small, making them look like USBs and highlighters, creating hoodies that they hide in. You know, monitoring now that we give them a Chromebook, which has, you know, been very valuable to education. But let's give them a Chromebook, and then teachers have to monitor, you know, what sites are on and things. So I'm glad because for education to work, those teachers have to be able to teach. And that's their primary job, and they are the primary, you know, us administrators support and provide resources but those teachers are the backbone of the educational system. They're the one in the trenches every day, and we have tried really hard to protect that educational time, and this is just another way. So when they came out with this rule, was like, there's our, you know, let's get rid of the smartwatches, which we'd already done, the cell phones, the tablets. Another thing that we had some trouble with last year because they're much easier to manipulate. I think it was an opportunity to say kids couldn't use their own personal devices. Laptops, you know, and people were like, oh, why can't, well, it's not that we don't want your kids to do your work. We give them all a device that's capable of doing everything we ask for.
Right.
But when they bring their own device, it's much easier to set up VPNs and work around things that we use to protect. You know, we have things in place that block a lot of those websites. So I just thought it was a very good law. A little bit easier for us, once again, because of what we had done in the past to implement. But it was kind of a refocus on, hey, you know, that we are on the right path, and that time is important, and that instructional time is important. And like I said, that's where the bulk of the work goes on in schools. So kudos to those classroom teachers for everything else they've had to do, but, you know, delivering that content, that instruction, and making it great for kids daily.
Last one I want to touch on was House Bill 342, which required successful completion, or does require successful completion of a one-credit course for financial literacy. I think in the last couple of years, we had to include financial literacy curriculum, but it was not a course. But I think this is something, again, that, you know, we already sort of done. We've obviously had to manipulate our schedule a little bit, but I think it's important that students are leaving high school knowing things about budgeting, credit, debit, savings accounts, checking accounts, insurance, taxes, those things that are really, I mean, real life, everyday skills.
Absolutely. Maybe as important a class for readiness, life readiness, as you can have. I mean, speaking from personal experience, number one, I'm married to a banker, and she said this for years. You know, the number of people that can't keep a checkbook, that don't budget, that leads to, you know, money lost out of your pocket. And I'll be honest, just on a personal level, listen, when I went to Northern Kentucky in 1990, they were giving away that, I'm not even a Reds fan, they were giving away that free Reds duffel bag. I was jacked. I signed up for the Discover card. You know, I was a poor boy from Augusta, had never been to a mall at this point. They gave me this piece of plastic, and I was like, what's that? Well, it's cash. You go buy something, you slide that card. I was like, man, this is the greatest thing in the world. Mr. Lero, I was jacked. Get me to the Florence Mall, get me some clothes, get me the PlayStation 1 or whatever system was cool that time. So about 2 weeks later, I'm going out to eat, and I slide my card, and it's not working. I said, what's going on? So I call these people, irate that I can't get my two Whoppers with ketchup and mayonnaise from Burger King, my fries. I can't eat lunch because my credit cards broke. Well, Mr. Kelsch, you've reached your $3,000 limit. Would you like to extend to $5,000? You've been a great customer. Absolutely, buddy. Sign me up. Well, at that time, I'd been getting these statements, paying $10, $15 a month. A poor college student, I could even afford this. I think life's great. About another month later, I reached that limit. And so I basically, for 1990 till 96, 97, so when I reached that $5,000 limit, I never used that Discover card again. So probably about 4 months. She wasn't my wife at that time, met my wife at that time. And, of course, being the banker she was, the finance person she was, she looked at, as a smart spouse, looked at our finances before she decided to marry me. She knew I had the great looks, the personality, the charm. She wanted to make sure the budget was in order. And she's like, what is this credit card? I was like, I ain't seen that card in years. So basically, in a nutshell, Tim, I'd been paying that minimum payment for 8 years and never using it, and because I didn't have any idea what that was. I mean, I thought it was a great idea. I could get what I wanted, slide this card. I was paying this month. Well, then I learned about principal and interest. I was paying the interest off, and that balance wasn't going down. So, that's kind of one that I don't give a lot of advice to kids, as far as things, because they've got a lot of people to do that and a lot to listen to. But that's the one advice I give them. If you're going to have one of those, number one, anything in life, if you're going to do something, know what you're doing. Be fluent in it, understand everything about it. I didn't, and it cost me a lot of money, and thank goodness my wife was a financial person. But, like you said, learning those skills, because you can have the best job in the world, you can work hard, you can do all that, but if you can't manage your money, you don't understand interest rates, taxes, loans, percentages, annual, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble. So once again, kudos to a lot of those new rules. I know it was a lot in 1 year to go over, and we've just mentioned on a couple of those, but that financial literacy is very important, and kudos to those that teach that, and I hope those students out there truly realize. And they ask you all the time. I remember in Algebra 2 asking my teacher, when am I ever going to use this? Geometry. I don't play pool. I'm not even good at pool. When am I going to use geometry? And I'm sure there was those classes we all felt, but I hope they realize financial literacy is one they're probably already using, and one they will use every day. It can really make or break them in their financial lives.
Well, Mr. Kelsch, of course, I didn't really know, being the first one, how long to plan for. I thought all these interviews might go 10 to 15 minutes, and this is almost 40, which is fine. No time limit on it, but I do appreciate had good conversations, and I appreciate you joining us here for the debut episode of Literally Speaking All Things AIS.
Mr. Lowe, thank you so much. Once again, you're always looking for ways to break it, take us to the next level, and we appreciate all the time and effort, and I don't know anything you've ever done that's not class act and done well, so we appreciate you, and thanks for allowing me to be the debut guest, and I hope you knew you were getting somebody that liked to talk.
That's right. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Now it's time for our AISD Spotlight. Each episode, we plan to shine a light on a program, club, or classroom project, or provide a quick fun fact about AIS. Today, we're discussing our Gear Up program, which we've had for nearly 4 years. The mission of Gear Up Kentucky is to increase the number of students in Kentucky communities who are ready to successfully transition to and through post-secondary education. We do this by providing services and support to the whole student and equipping their families, institutions, and communities to promote and sustain student success. While transition to college and post-secondary training is a focus area, our local Gear Up program also helps students transition into the military or the workforce. Augusta Independent is one of only 12 districts in the state of Kentucky who was awarded this program. Our local program manager, Autumn Bishop, does an outstanding job supporting our students and families, and we plan to have her as a guest on the podcast in the future to discuss the program more in depth. We will wrap up each episode with our In the Loop segment that will contain important upcoming events. On October 20th, Gear Up will have a college application day, and we'll have FAFSA night from 3 o'clock until 7 o'clock. The PTSA's annual Halloween Social will be held on Friday, October 31st in the gymnasium. On November 7th, winter sports pictures will be taken and will include high school girls and boys basketball, middle school boys basketball, high school cheerleading, and middle school cheerleading. Also on November 7th, Orange and Black Night will be held. That's it for today's episode. We appreciate Robin Kelch for joining us. Be sure to subscribe on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so you never miss an episode. And visit our website or follow Augusta Independent School District on social media for the latest updates. I'm Tim Literal, and this has been Literally Speaking, All Things AIS. We're glad you joined us today. Until next time, stay connected, stay learning, and stay Panther proud.